3, 2, 1.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams and all the scandals we hear about. What does it mean for cyclists here in New York City? Well, there's really a lot to say because the mayor has always had a relationship with the cycling community one way or the other. And Eric Adams, in fact, is the first cyclist since, I think, back in the 60s, the first mayor who actually rode a bicycle in the city. And he developed something of a relationship during his tenure as borough president of Brooklyn. And he would come out on his bike to vigils that were held with the families who had lost family members due to traffic violence, whether on a bike or pedestrians who were killed. And, you know, he put that energy in to show that government cared, and it seemed as if he cared. And I do believe that he does care on a certain level, but what we learned about him once he was elected is that he was highly transactional. So even though he was more like into cycling than his predecessors, let's say Bill de Blasio or Michael Bloomberg, he is a transactional politician. What drives him is giving and getting, not so much policy. Mayor Bloomberg, once he adopted a more enlightened transportation policy at the behest of his second transportation commissioner, Jeanette Sadik-Khan, has always been a very policy-driven mayor, and though a Republican, did much more for the cause of cycling here in New York City than any of his successors did. Bill de Blasio, who pretty much was just going on momentum from the Bloomberg bicycling policies and program. And then once we hit Eric Adams, what we found was that if he could get something, if he could sell a favor to someone by blocking a bicycle lane, for example, the redesign of McGinnis Boulevard, this horrible arterial strode running through what is, you know, really an up-and-coming residential neighborhood in Greenpoint and Brooklyn, down to other parts of Brooklyn, he would do it. He had deputies associated with him, all of whom have had their phones and laptops confiscated now by the FBI and prosecutors, like Ingrid Lewis Martin. He had them in a place where they would veto specific projects that the DOT was working on to make the streets safer for cyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. His deputies would reach down and say, oh, I'm going to block this bike lane. I'm going to block this street improvement project because I know someone on that street. Maybe there's a business person on that street. Maybe there's people who live on that street who want the parking and don't want to see any reduction in parking. They don't care how dangerous or not the street might be. And, you know, allowing close aides to the mayor to reach down into a department like the Department of Transportation and just block things that already reflect years of study, design, community engagement, various approval processes, even funds invested in the plans just because someone said, I don't want a bike lane on my street. That's no way to run a city, but that's what we've gotten from Eric Adams. What we saw is that he was buying and selling matters that should have been determined according to policy, according to the transactional calculus of someone who was just, frankly, trying to line his pockets and the pockets of his aides and other people in his circle who he put in these high positions in government. And now at this point, we see that, you know, we're foundering, you know, with respect to transportation policy and most other policy, because Mayor Adams has been abandoned by all of his inner circle of advisors and commissioners who've resigned in the wake of these scandals. And I guess they don't like their phones and laptops being confiscated. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want mine confiscated either. And he's going out to these press conferences alone and just trying to, you know, show a little bravado, like, I'm still the mayor. I'm still going to make it work. You know, it's ironic. I was speaking with some people who are deeply involved in the policy and advocacy work here in the city at some of the organizations that I sit on the boards of. And I said, well, I guess with all these distractions going on from the Eric Adams scandal and prosecution, indictment, I guess we can't get anything done. They said it's interesting because some of the biggest roadblocks have been taken out because they've been indicted or resigned as well. And people aren't paying as much attention as they ordinarily would to DOT. They aren't looking to go in and reach into DOT and steal things to sell. on that transactional basis, and DOT has actually been able to finish up some projects because they haven't been bothered and harried and undersold and undercut under what we saw, that sort of activity from the first couple of years of the Adams administration. But clearly this is not an answer to the problem of a transactional mayor. The answer is getting a mayor who understands policy, who's going to entrust policy to the people who understand it, to the traffic engineers and street designers and the safety experts who can help our streets perform better economically, in terms of safety, and in terms of efficient transportation. People think that there isn't a science of traffic engineering. It's just, who gets space or who doesn't. That's not true at all. Good design makes streets work for everyone. There is enough room, even in this crowded city, if done right, for the streets to work for everyone. But not if you have a mayor at the top who's buying and selling road space in order to curry favor with groups who may be contributing to him as a quid pro quo. So I think that the sooner we can have Eric Adams exit the stage, whether he's going to be removed by the governor or resign or voted out of office if we have to wait until June of 2025, that's what's going to be best for our streets here in New York City.